Friday, July 10th. Welcome back to SamCentre. I am your host, Sam, as always, and we are gearing up for one of the most incredible weekends of the year. If you're a sports fan, you will not want to have any other plans. If your girlfriend tells you it's time to go to her parents' house for dinner, you have food poisoning. I don't care what excuse you need to make up. You are not going to that dinner. You are watching World Cup. You are watching CFL, and most importantly, Conor McGregor, Max Holloway too. We're going to break it all down on this episode, as well as the Edmonton Elks defeating the Ottawa Redblacks and the remaining games on the week 6 of the CFL slate. But first things first, let's run that intro.
Hey everyone, Milt Stiegel here. Make sure you check out SamCentre. He's doing some of the best sports analysts out there, baby. Check him out.
Yo, I'm sat on the throne, but I'm looking at the blueprints. Building a temple where the spirit leaves its footprints. You be a knight's the most high. Asked what I'm needing, didn't.
Alright, so as we talked about in the intro, huge weekend coming up here in the world of sports. No matter what you're into, there's obviously baseball happening, football of both types, combat sports, and everything in between. But we're going to talk about soccer and the remaining games happening in the World Cup. France became the first team to advance to the semifinals as they defeated Morocco by a score of 2-0. And it was truly a dominant performance by the France squad. They're showing again why they are the favorites to win the tournament, but they're going to be in tough in their next game. They're going to be taking on the winner of Spain and Belgium. In that game, Spain is going to be the favorite by a big margin, and that is because they have a pretty deep squad led by multiple stars, including one who is 17 years old, goes by the name of Yamal. And if you have not heard of this guy, he has all the potential in the world to, be the next superstar. Obviously, he needs to live up to those expectations, but playing for your country at the age of 17 is something that not a lot of people can say that they've done. Obviously, you have to kind of have that sit right on your birthday. So a lot of players maybe had the ability to do that at one point, but still, big game for Spain and Belgium, and then the other two remaining games happen on Saturday. We talk about Saturday being the massive day, July 11th. You cannot have any other plans. You need to sit on your couch. You need to order $25 worth of Burger King from Uber Eats and just enjoy the day. We're having England taking on Norway in the first game of the World Cup quarterfinal actions on Saturday. And then that game is huge for both nations, right? We talk about England. They have the song that it's coming home. Football is coming home. And if it does, it's something that means a ton. Obviously in Canada, it would mean a lot. In Mexico, it would mean a massive amount. But these European nations live and breathe soccer. And so something like this going to any of the remaining nations is really going to make a massive difference. Norway, same sort of thing. They've been underdogs in a lot of their matchups. They've been an underdog against England, but they have a star in Holland who is capable of putting up points against anybody. So he can go out there and score. His shot is incredible. It should be an excellent game. And in the second game of the World Cup on Saturday, we have Lionel Messi's Argentina squad after their insane comeback against Egypt. Hey, was it rigged? Was it not? It's still, we're going to break it down as the greatest comeback in sports history, or one of them, right? We're talking 28-3 and now down 2-0. It passed the 85th minute. Big performance for Argentina and Messi. They're going to be taking on a Switzerland squad who, a lot of people maybe had as a dark horse team in the tournament, but I'm not sure a lot of teams were expecting them to advance this far. And so for Switzerland, it's not a moral victory to lose any game. But if it ends up being that you lose in the quarterfinals to Lionel Messi in his final World Cup, I think it probably could be a lot worse for those fans. So watch for those matchups to happen. The winner of those two final games that we talked about will then play in Wednesday next week. And the winner of the first two games, France and then either Belgium or Spain, are going to play next Tuesday. So be watching for that. And then let's get into the Elks versus the Redblacks. And there really isn't much to talk about. The Edmonton Elks straight up dominated Ottawa, and really the game was close, for, let's say, into the fourth quarter, past that third quarter mark. Ottawa was within striking distance, but it never really felt like they ever were going to have the opportunity to win the game. Jake Maier, as we talked about at all times, whenever he gets to Edmonton, he just makes insane amounts of mistakes. Interception after interception, all of the positive momentum that Ottawa had built in previous weeks, I think is completely gone now. You look at this team now being winless still at this point of the season, dropping multiple games in a row. The East, it's funny enough to say, you could potentially still not be out of it, depending what happens with Hamilton. Toronto still looks like they're going to be fairly consistent. So I don't think things are looking great for Ottawa. But to go out into Edmonton, put up this type of performance, we don't have a lot to talk about. It was straight domination. Cody Fajardo didn't miss really any of his passes other than, a few drops, a few really tight plays that could have gone either way. Justin Rankin showed again and again why he's the most explosive athlete in the CFL, the best running back. He has the best vision, and he's able to bounce off of multiple tacklers, break plays that are designed to go to the inside, break them off to the outside where he just wins a one-on-one and then there's nobody left there to tackle him. He did that multiple times. He was able to take short passes. He was able to take handoffs, pitches. It didn't matter the way you give the ball to Rankin. He's just going to score. So the Elks really are building something. I don't think this is much of a reflection on the Elks. I think it's much more a reflection on Ottawa not being prepared to play. They put, McLeod Bethel Thompson in near the end of the game because it was already a massive blowout. 40-17. It's one of those things where you go in there, you were competitive in a lot of games, and then you allow this to happen when you really probably needed a win. And against an Elks team that was coming off of a loss, obviously able to bounce back is massive for them. But missed opportunity on the side of the Redblacks. They are not going to be on the Victory Monday board. And I'm not sure if they ever join the Victory Monday board at this point. They legitimately might not win a game this year. Moving on, we're going to talk another wacky situation, Friday night football. Just to break it down as we talked about it deeper on our Wednesday show, Toronto is going in to play a home game in Winnipeg against the Blue Bombers. This is another scheduled home game for Toronto, the same situation that they had in Saskatchewan, where it's technically for them a home game, but they're playing Winnipeg in Princess Auto Stadium in Winnipeg. So I've already seen all the posts from Winnipeg social media. They have over 30,000 tickets sold. It's going to be another sellout. And for, the Argos, it's good. They're able to get this revenue after missing out on some of the revenue and potential home interactions that they can get with the World Cup taking over their stadium. That's obviously now coming to a close, so they're able to go back home very soon. But it's cool for them to at least have these experiences, right? Play in front of a really hostile crowd, unfortunately for them, but it didn't matter in the game against Saskatchewan. They were able to go in there, take the victory. I think now we're going to see Winnipeg under Drew Brown. We won't be able to fully judge Drew Brown and the offense of Winnipeg, just because I don't think it's fair after he won't be the full starter in practice. Obviously this week he was, but for these past weeks, he was definitely not the full starter in practice. When Claros was healthy, he was splitting reps as the backup. You saw the Winnipeg offense be completely ineffective in their last game. So I think this is the right call. This is why you brought in Drew Brown. He's going to be the guy that takes over more than likely going into next year. And so you see what he can do with the offense against the Toronto defense, who kind of is terrible. I just watched them live get 58 points put up against them. And whether that's a credit to Calgary or an absolute diss against Toronto's defense, we're going to find out. But they're going to score points. And so if Drew Brown and Winnipeg is not prepared to keep up, we're going to see Toronto win this game. Moving on, Saturday. This is going to be another part of why Saturday is such an incredible day in sports. We have the Alouettes hosting the Calgary Stampeders. Both teams hungry for a victory. If the Alouettes can win this game, they can really cement their position in the East, kind of start to break away from the pack. We'll talk about Hamilton and why maybe, they're falling off a little bit after Bo Levi's injury. And then with Toronto going into hostile territory in Winnipeg, this is a big game for Montreal to be able to pull ahead. Calgary on the flip side. Edmonton has won. Saskatchewan has a very winnable game against Hamilton. And so now we're looking at you needing to stay competitive in the West. So for both teams, this is a massive game. Both teams are riding high. And I think Calgary is going to go in there and look to take it to Montreal. But Davis Alexander and the Montreal Alouettes do not lose in the regular season unless they come to Edmonton. So I think it's going to be a close game. I predicted overtime. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if this game does go to overtime. What would surprise me would be a blowout. I think Vernon Adams and Calgary are really going to go in there, look to take it to Montreal, build off the momentum of their win in the Stampede Bowl. And then we're talking Sunday night football. So after we've had our big fall off from the UFC card and our big day in sports, we're going to relax with a game between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And this is a game that, looking maybe last week, if we were to look ahead to this week, we would have said, hey, we have game of the week potentially here as well, right? But unfortunately, things have changed. Hamilton now has a really busy quarterback room. They brought in some guys that they've dealt with previously just to add some more depth. I would be surprised if Trey isn't the guy. I mean, you bring him in to be the backup. He was a starter in Edmonton. He's shown potential. I think if you can gear the offense around Trey and you can really go towards his strengths, it's an interesting choice, right? Like, you have Bo Levi Mitchell, and then you have a backup in Trey Ford who just doesn't play the same at all. And so there's not a lot of guys. I mean, obviously, it's a credit to both guys, right? I don't think it's a negative to Trey, and I don't think it's a negative to Bo in any way. Bo Levi is really hard to emulate just because he's so good. There's only going to be a couple guys in the league who can even compete with what he can do week to week with his accuracy, his ball placement, and his aggressiveness. And then you look at Trey, he's just a lot different, right? He's a guy that if you can put in maybe that more of a zone read where he can potentially pull the ball, run, control, and then make those short to intermediate passes instead of having to stretch the field, he's going to be successful. You have playmakers on the Hamilton offense. So I'm not fully ready to give up on them. I think they just need to get creative on what they have, or you roll with somebody else, right? You have some pocket passers there, some guys that you've dealt with before. I'm just not sure any of those guys have even close to the ceiling of Trey. And as for Saskatchewan, they're going to be looking to continue to roll. As we mentioned, Edmonton has now won, so Saskatchewan's going to be looking to match them. A very winnable game. Hamilton is now, they're going to be fired up, ready to play, I'm sure. It was a little bit demoralizing in the moment to lose Bo Levi that way. We're not really going to hold the performance against them that much. They've had a full week of practice now together. So I think Saskatchewan is going to be prepared for the best version of Hamilton. And it could potentially get a little tricky if they don't know what to expect. They don't know who's starting at quarterback. I would look for the Riders probably to stay consistent, win this game, and really make it competitive in the West. And then we'll look at the East afterwards and wonder what we're thinking. Can't wait to talk about it all on Monday. And then we'll do our CFL Wednesday power ranking show as always. But hey, now it's time. UFC Friday, let's run the show. It is time. The main event of the evening, the return of Conor McGregor taking on Max Holloway for the second time, a rematch 5 years away from the sport for Conor McGregor. He suffered a leg injury, extremely gruesome, something that would keep a lot of men away from the sport, especially men like Conor McGregor, who have accomplished what he's accomplished at this stage of his career. But he's back. Doesn't really seem like he needs the money. Doesn't seem like he needs anything more to his legacy. So why is he coming back? And we hope it's for himself. So if we get that version of McGregor, we're super excited. But regardless, a great card for us to break down. We won't talk about every fight, but we'll talk about a lot of them. And a couple that we won't talk about, most importantly, it's McGregor fight week. It's Holloway, Paddy the Baddy. There's a lot of stars on this card. But the biggest one, there's only one fighter in UFC history who's ever had a Wendy's combo meal named after them. And that is Damian Penes, the budding star out of Aruba. Apparently Wendy's Aruba loves this guy. There's a chance for a meet and greet if you get the combo meal there. I don't know if I have a single viewer from Aruba, but if there are, go get the Penes meal. And then we also have Wang. We have Wang and Penes on this card with the return of the Mac. This is the best day ever. Let's get into the fights. One fight that we won't break down in great detail. I think that Tracy Cortez does beat Kong Wang, and I think Penes does probably beat Cesar Almeida. Let's talk our first fight that we're going to break down in some great detail, though. Former champion Cody Garbrandt on the prelims, taking on Adrian Yanez. And this is a fight that, for a lot of people, maybe they won't tune into. You know, looking at Cody's past performances, he kind of has been extremely unimpressive. He loses his last fight against an old Chinese guy that is just, you know, good, but not great. If Cody doesn't get kicked in the nuts 20 times. Like, this Chinese guy had no interest in winning the fight. He just wanted to go in there and kick Cody in the nuts repeatedly. And so he, you know, our last image of him is him slouched over a bucket, puking in the Octagon, when really what I want to think about is this Cody Garbrandt. And so that's not the version that exists anymore. The version we have now is a guy still looking to be competitive, but he's really hittable. You know, and he's fighting a guy in Adrian Yanez who is good, but not great. I think it's a very similar matchup to his last one. I think the UFC knows what they're doing with Cody at this point in his career. They want him to still be competitive and be fun in fights. So put him up against strikers, guys like Adrian Yanez. And surprisingly enough, it's kind of a potential winnable fight for Cody because he's going to have a guy who's game and a guy who might get a little bit intimidated if he starts doing his shimmies and his antics in the Octagon. I don't know if that Cody exists anymore, but a former champion on the prelims. He's just one of another one on here. So it's worth talking about. Super exciting reasons to tune in. Moving on to the next fight. Now, this is kind of insane that there's a former champion in Cody Garbrandt before this fight with Gable Stevenson and Elijah Ellington. Gable Stevenson's 3-0, and he's okay, I'll give him props before I rip into them, because you can see we're getting fired up Sammy here, because these guys are horrible. And this is a regional MMA fight on a major promotion for one reason. Gable Stevenson is the 2020 Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling, and he is an athlete in every sense of the word. A true heavyweight. You know, we talked about Josh Hokit a few weeks ago being a wrestler as well as a former NFL player. Similar for Gable Stevenson. He was able to win gold. He was a multiple time champion in university, but then he was able to win the gold medal in Tokyo, be the best of the best. And then he did do a little bit of work in the NFL, I think making practice squads or at least trying out for the Buffalo Bills. He was around. And this guy wrestled at 125 kilos in the Olympics. When we were talking about a guy in Josh Hokit potentially being undersized and small because he was able to wrestle at a much lighter weight. So 125 kilos, you're a true UFC heavyweight, and he has all of the looks of being one. He is fast, he's aggressive, he's knocking everybody out he fights in one round. And so you look at this on paper, 3-0, Gable Stevenson is like a minus 3,000 favorite. And if you don't gamble, here's what that means. You have to bet $3,000 on Gable Stevenson to win the fight in order to win $100 of profit. So obviously not worth it, right? Because it's still a cage match and his opponent has more experience. Elijah Ellington has been on the mic. He's been saying, hey, I got nothing to lose in this matchup, but I'm going to go in there and teach him a lesson. And I don't think so. You know, I watched the Gable Stevenson tape and I thought to myself, maybe if this other guy is in any way good, I'm just going to bet the 110 to 1 underdog or whatever he is, right? But then SamCentre here, you know, we do our tape study. He's horrible. He fought a guy named Spur Roundtree or Roundhouse, something like that. Spur Roundhouse. I don't even know if Spur Roundhouse is a real person. This guy's tapology is just lost. It's regional MMA, especially regional heavyweight MMA. I wonder if I could win these fights at 135 pounds. Just because these other guys, I don't even know if they exist. I wonder if you just show up and they just give you a first round KO on your record because Spur Roundhouse doesn't exist. He doesn't even have a picture on Tapology. He has 30 fights, but not a single picture on Tapology. Again, I don't know. Rant over. Gable Stevenson is going to run through Elijah Ellingson. He's going to do it in under 2.5 minutes. He's probably going to do it in under 60 seconds. However, depending on the path they want to take with Gable is really going to be where he lands in the UFC heavyweight division. He's young. He trains at a really great gym with John Jones and the other guys over there. They have Hokit over there as well. Not saying that Ellingson doesn't train in a good gym, because it seems like he does. It seems like he trains with Ty Fortune and Waldo over at that gym. So those are real UFC heavyweights. Really good grappling. I mean, Ty Fortune, if he said he's training with him, he is an Olympic wrestler as well. But we're not talking about Olympic wrestling prowess like Gable. And a guy who is heavy and fast and athletic and training with the best in the world. He's going to look every bit the price of minus 3,000. However, I'm just saying in the future, depending on the path they take with him, if they want to rush him, he's going to get destroyed because he's terrible right now. He's had 3 pro fights, right? He has combat experience in the Olympics, but he doesn't have any MMA experience outside of fighting some absolute cans. But he's fighting another one here for our entertainment. The UFC has a potential future star that they can build up in the same way they're building up Bo Nickel. They know what they're doing. Really good life at the heavyweight division. I don't think Elijah's going to be around, but having Gable now, having Hokit, having Waldo, Ty Fortune, we have some of these guys in heavyweight that are actually starting to bring a little bit of life to it. I don't know how good any of them are, but, you know, that top 15-ish is starting to get restocked with some of these guys. So, moving on, another former champion on the prelims. We have Bobby Knuckles, Robert Whittaker, taking on Nikita Krylov in Robert Whittaker's 205-pound debut. Now, this is interesting. The narrative all week has been, is Whittaker going to be too undersized to fight at 205 pounds? And maybe, right? Maybe against some of the larger 205 guys, he could be potentially undersized. But I think Whittaker made a great point all week. He's like, I've already fought a lot of these guys at 205. I mean, we're talking about René de Ridder has moved up. Paulo Costa has moved up. Duplessis. You're looking at these guys just being massive 85ers. Even Izzy fought at 205. Pereira fought at 205 after being at 85. So I think a lot of these guys were really hurting themselves to make 85. And for Whittaker, it's different. With his fight against Chimaev, we have the poster behind me. He went in there and he got his jaw rearranged. And I don't even mean just from a knockout. The face crank went on around his jaw and Chimaev twisted tight and shattered all of his teeth in his bottom jaw. And it's happened before, but it is a extremely gruesome injury. Obviously, Whittaker taps immediately. Watching that fight live, it was really confusing because a lot of us have really enjoyed Bobby Knuckles over the years. We really like Robert Whittaker. He's a guy who's going in there and never will quit. But just on the outside, he had the face crank there and he tapped really, really fast. So everyone's watching and think, how do you tap to that? You know, it's not under your chin. In hindsight, the man probably didn't tap fast enough considering what he went through. But he's back. That's the main concern in this matchup with Nikita Krylov. I don't think Krylov has any answer for Whittaker as far as technical skill, power, clean boxing, or anything like that. But what is it going to look like for Whittaker up at 205? So the betting lines are actually quite close for this fight. And I think the reason for that is simply because there's an unknown for Whittaker at 205. Can he handle a guy who's fought at heavyweight in Krylov? So you know he's a true 205er. Whereas opposed to this, I'm not too worried about it. I think Whittaker's motivated. I think he's going to show levels against Krylov. I think potentially he knocks him out in under 1.5 rounds because Whittaker's just so much higher level. I don't know what fights you make for him at 205. It doesn't sound like he's set on getting the belt. You know, his teammate and friend, Carlos Alberg, is the current champion. So there's no way they fight. Whittaker himself said he doesn't fight his friends. So at this point, Whittaker's looking to get a couple more winnable fights in him. This is one of them. Give me Bobby Knuckles. Give me Bobby Knuckles by knockout under 7.5 minutes. Moving up the card to our featured prelim of the night, we have Bobby Green taking on Terrence McKinney, and you see the name King Green in front of us. However, I am a man who will call only one person king, and that is Jesus Christ. So Bobby Green is taking on Terrence McKinney, and Bobby is game to fight anybody at any time. He's been a UFC veteran for years. He's clean in the striking. He has wrestling and takedown defense in order to fight anybody. You know, at this point in his career, 40 years old almost, he's not going to be a title contender, but that's okay. He's a guy who can put on extremely entertaining fights, be the featured prelim, be that first fight on the main event of a fight night, and he's going to put bums in seats, right? And on the flip side, we have T-Rex, Terrence McKinney, a guy who is literally kill or be killed in the Octagon. Terrence McKinney's Tapology page is the funniest thing ever. We talked about Manuel Torres. This is Black Manuel Torres. It's hilarious looking at this guy has no interest in ever going into a decision. Funny enough, he had 2 amateur fights, and in his second amateur fight before he turned professional, he went to a decision. And now, you look at his 24 professional fights. He's gone over 7.5 minutes one time. And that was under 1 minute into the third round, he submitted somebody. So for Terrence McKinney, 18-8, all 24 of his professional fights ending via finish, and only one of them ever going over a round and a half. So tune into this fight and make sure you're not late because you could potentially miss it. It seems like it's a clear breakdown in the same way that Rafael Fiziev was against Manuel Torres. And it's going to be the exact same breakdown with the exact same prediction. It's literally Terrence McKinney round 1, and it's probably Terrence McKinney in the first 3 minutes of the fight, or it's Bobby Green the second it enters round 2. Because the second that fight enters round 2, something happens in Terrence McKinney's mind, and he's done fighting. I don't know what it is. He's going to go out there, and it's 50 seconds into round 2, and he is going to throw something with his chin straight up in the air with the intention that he either KOs Bobby Green, gets a submission, or he's going to sleep. Someone's going to sleep in this fight, and it's probably happening under a round and a half. Just tune in for the action. It's going to be so much fun. If this fight goes to a decision, we'll have to clip it and talk about it on Monday. Because I think the odds of this fight going to decision are worse than for Elijah Ellingson to beat Gable Stevenson, an Olympic gold medalist wrestler. So I don't know what's going to happen here. My lean is I think Terrence McKinney's just going to get Bobby out of there in the first round. If he doesn't, though, the clear prediction is Bobby Green. So maybe if you're going to bet it, Terrence McKinney first round, and then just live bet Bobby Green the second it goes over 1 round. Okay, guys, moving on to our main card. We have Lonnie Kavanaugh taking on Brandon Raw Dog Royval, a UFC veteran in Raw Dog, a guy who's fought the best of the best. You know, he's fought Pantoja, he's fought Van, he's fought Moreno, he's fought literally everybody that you can fight at 125 pounds. He hasn't always won those fights. You know, he did beat Moreno by split decision. Personally, I thought he lost that fight. He did drop it to Pantoja, to Van, and to Cap in his most recent times. But those aren't bad losses, right? They're KO losses, which is a little bit concerning because Brandon Royval's style is to be the raw dog, to get in there and literally fight you and make you quit. He's going to put a scrap on you, and he's fighting someone in Lonnie Kavanaugh who might not love that. We don't know. We haven't really seen it out of him yet. This guy is a potential star for the UFC. And I think the UFC knows what they're doing here. It's kind of the same thing we talked about Cody Garbrandt. Maybe the same thing we'll talk about in our co-main event as well. I have another mini conspiracy theory. But the UFC wants Loney Kavanaugh to knock out Brandon Royval because Loney Kavanaugh is an interesting guy. The picture I have up on here for his Tapology, he's a handsome Englishman. He's good on the mic, but he actually has China as his fighting region because his mom is from Hong Kong. So now we're talking about a guy in Loney Kavanaugh who's going to have UK fans, and he's going to have the Chinese market as well. This is massive for the UFC. He beat Brandon Moreno, whereas I said I thought that, Royval might have had a more competitive fight. Obviously, a split decision win against Moreno. It was clear who the better fighter was in Loney's night in altitude, in enemy territory. He went in there against a former champion and put hands on him. So my prediction is he's going to do the same against Royval, who was never at the level that Moreno was. I think he's going to knock him out. The UFC knows what they're doing in this matchup. They have the potential to make stars on this card. It's a Conor McGregor card. You're seeing Loney Kavanaugh. You're seeing Gable Stevenson. They know exactly what they're doing. This is an opportunity. Obviously, he needs to take advantage of it, and it's not going to be an easy fight. He's fighting Raw Dog, and I believe there's going to be a moment in the first round where Loney is hurt, and everyone's thinking, oh boy, is this going to be the end of it? But he has enough poison there. He's going to find a knockout in the late second round or early third round. Loney Kavanaugh by finish. And then he has a real, I think what you do then, Pantoja versus Van rematch. And then you do Loney Kavanaugh, Manal Kape for the number one contender to see who fights the champion after that. Moving up the card, we have a man who everyone loves to hate in Mario Bautista taking on Corey Sandhagen. And they love to hate Mario Bautista simply because he fought Jose Aldo, won via split decision. A lot of people think he robbed Jose Aldo. And obviously he has nothing to do with the judges. But there was a lot of hate heading Mario Bautista's way after that fight. And he's a guy who isn't the most exciting style. For the most part, he likes to go to decision, taking on Corey Sandhagen, a guy who is fairly exciting. Corey will also go to decision quite a bit now at this point in his career, but he is a very unique striker. I still don't know how, and I get it, the UFC wants O'Malley to fight Jan, or they're going to run either Merab and Jan or O'Malley and Jan. They're going to do some combo of this, so they're waiting on that for O'Malley. But the really cool matchup to make on the White House card would have been Corey Sandhagen versus Sean O'Malley, because that is the fight everybody would want to see. Two strikers going at it. This fight, everyone's going to want to see Corey still. Mario's going to come in there and bring it. And Mario said himself, I would be stupid to get in a wrestling match or in a striking match with Corey Sandhagen, which means he's going to wrestle. And for Corey, coming off of a loss to Merab, where he was taken down 20 times. And listen, that could be a reflection on Corey's takedown defense, partially, but it's also more of a credit to how much of a monster Merab is. But Mario can wrestle too. He's going to be the shorter fighter. He's going to maybe have trouble closing distance against Corey's creative range management, being able to throw kicks out there, spinning attacks, all of those things that he likes to do. But if he's able to close the distance, I'm a little worried for Sandhagen. Give me Mario Bautista via split decision. That's my official prediction. Now, Paddy the Batty taking on the God of War Benoit Saint-Denis, the Frenchman. And now this is going to be a fight leading up to our main event that you will not want to miss. Paddy the Batty, Paddy Pimblett, coming off of a loss in a 5-round war with Justin Gaethje, where, he took a lot of shots. We've talked about it for years, me and my buddies. Paddy kind of sucks. Hey, but he's also kind of good, right? This is the most difficult thing with Paddy. He's really good. He's really tough, and he's willing to go out there and fight anybody. Justin hits extremely hard, and he hit Paddy with literally everything possible. And credit to Justin, he kept hitting him. He just kept hitting him over and over again. There was good wrestling shown as well in that fight. But Paddy leaves his chin right in the air. He talks about being a Scouser and how they don't get knocked out. But he might get knocked out in this fight, because that chin is right there and he does not move that head. But so far, so good in his way. He didn't get knocked out against Gaethje, and a lot of guys cannot say the same. As for the God of War, Benoit Saint-Denis, he is a guy that is kill or be killed in the same way that Terrence McKinney is. He goes in there looking for a finish, and if he doesn't get a finish, oftentimes he's on the opposing end of a finish. And so, recently, his resumes look pretty good. He's taken on a lot of the top guys in this division. He's fought Dustin Poirier, he's fought Dan Hooker, he's fought a lot of these guys at 55, and you cannot say that Benoit Saint-Denis ever shies away from a fight. His ears are unbelievable. This guy must have spent a lot of time in the wrestling gym, because the cauliflower ears on this man, it is you gotta drain these things. I'm surprised at the press conference he even heard any of the questions, because I'll throw a picture up there, they're disgusting. That means, and as you've seen in his other fights, he is susceptible to getting knocked out and submitted, but he's also very capable of knocking you out and submitting you, and he's capable of doing it early. So the key here for Paddy is going to be let Benoit gas early, if that's possible. I don't think it's going to be, the fight's going to come to each other early. My official prediction, though, Paddy the Baddy by submission. I've watched a lot of tape. I went and watched all of the fights back recently for Benoit. I watched him fight Poirier. I watched him fight Dan Hooker. And the one thing I saw in both those fights was both guys were really close on a guillotine. Like, really close. And I believe Paddy's a better submission grappler than Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker. And I think he's a better wrestler than both of those guys. So, when we're talking about that, Paddy's seen what I've seen. Benoit's more than willing to bring the fight to him and do it. Paddy the Baddy, under 1.5 rounds, he is submitting Benoit Saint-Denis. And I'll go a step further. He is submitting him via guillotine. I've seen it. I've seen it in the tape. Those other guys that he scrambled out of, he's not scrambling out of this. The other way that he gets it done is a scramble on the ground. Paddy ends up on top, ground and pound into a TKO. Paddy the Baddy by finish, by submission. And now, let's run it. The return of the Mac.
Conor McGregor is a UFC interim featherweight champion. The fighting face of a nation.
I'm back through the glen, road again, and my heart with grief was sore. For I parted it with valiant men, whom I never shall see more.
Let's talk about the fight around which this card was built. The two men rematching 10 plus years in the making. Conor McGregor versus Max Blessed Holloway. And I cannot wait for this fight. 170 pounds is a really interesting weight class. And that's going to be what everybody's talking about. Obviously, the first fight happened at 145 pounds. And if you look at both of these men's career, they both fought at different weight classes at different times. Conor does have experience at 170 pounds. He's fought as low at 45, was the double champ at both 45 and 55. And so now you're looking at him up at 170 again. People are thinking that he's going to be able to carry the weight better than Max Holloway. But I don't know if I'm fully convinced about that. Max is a big frame as well. He was clearly draining himself to make 45. That wasn't going to work for him anymore. I think his weight class is 155 pounds. And now, as you can see in what I have down below, he has a real case against the current champion at 155 pounds that if he can make light work of Conor McGregor here, he can literally now say, hey, I'm coming back down to 55. Justin Gaethje, let's rematch our performance that we had at UFC 300 where I knocked you out cold. And so this is where MMA math gets really weird, right? Because at this exact moment, I'm not entirely sure if you rematch Max and Justin, that's going to be a great idea. I think Justin is at a time in his career where he said he wasn't taking the Max fight seriously at the time. It could just be an excuse. Everyone likes to say that after they lose. But the version of Justin Gaethje that we saw against Ilia Topuria, I don't know if anyone wants to fight that version right now, right? Hey, Charles Oliveira does. I'll tell you that much because the champion has a name. But talking about this fight, the return of Conor McGregor after 5 years off. He took a gruesome injury break because his leg snapped in half. Against Dustin Poirier, it was just terrible. The classic sideline interview from Joe Rogan while Conor is sitting there. There was no check. I didn't check it. There was no check. My leg just broke. And so it was horrible, right? To see the Mac and knowing that that one might be the last time we ever see him. Not a lot of guys. We talk about Bo Levi Mitchell. We talk about it with other leg injuries in the past. We've seen them in MMA and we've seen guys be able to return. But for Conor McGregor, his entire style was that light on his feet karate, mixing it up with kicks. If you watch Conor versus Max 1, Conor is the most creative striker that you've ever seen. The way that he's kicking and doing these front kicks, he's kicking and hooking at the same time with his leg. You just don't see a lot of guys be capable of doing that and then able to change levels. In the first fight, he was able to take Max Holloway down a lot. And who knows if that's the game plan for this fight as well. Because we just saw Max against a guy in Charles Oliveira get absolutely dominated on the ground. And for the first fight, Conor McGregor, that was his key to victory. He was outstriking Max Holloway. Watching that fight again, I do think he was winning in the striking. So I don't think he needed the wrestling in order to do that. But that version of McGregor and this version of McGregor, we just can't compare them. That version was so hungry on his way to becoming the double champ of the UFC. And this version, we don't know. It seems like Conor is excited and coming back for him. And if that's the case, that's exactly what we want to see out of McGregor. But he's the best guy on the mic ever. You know, there's just nobody better than Conor McGregor on the mic, and he proves it again and again. So he could easily be lying to all of us. His camp could have gone horribly. This guy might have 3 minutes of cardio before Max absolutely starches him. But I don't want to believe that's the case. It's been a long time off for McGregor, but if he's sincere, bringing his family here, talking about finding God, being in a really good place mentally, then if that's the version of Conor McGregor you get, he's going to put up a really good fight against Max Holloway, and he might beat him. Because if Conor's leg is all right, and he's still really light on his feet, bouncing around, throwing kicks, switching it up, Max is really heavy on his front foot. With that boxing style of Max Holloway being one of the best boxers that we've seen in the UFC, the one weakness is that he's extremely heavy on his front leg. The first thing Dana White talks about in the post-fight press conference for UFC 300 was that Max Holloway is walking. And the reason that was so impressive is that his leg looked like it tripled in size after the leg kicks that Justin Gaethje was giving to him. And this was after he cracked Justin Gaethje's nose in the first round, cracked him multiple times. Justin was still able to put a lot of damage, surviving there with Max at 155 pounds. And so if Conor has had a lot more time to adjust to this weight, where Max is simply putting on the weight, Conor at this point probably never makes 55 again after all the drugs and alcohol and all of the other things he's put on. But he's had a lot more time to prep for this weight. So again, I think the choice is going to be Max Holloway to win probably over a round and a half, maybe by decision. But I think by that third round mark, if Conor is maybe what everyone's thinking, where he's just not the same anymore, he's coming back, but taking this long off, he's not going to have the fight cardio. If he doesn't get Max out early, it's over. I don't know if I fully buy into that narrative, but I also probably agree. I don't know how McGregor has 5 rounds of cardio for this fight. Max, I wouldn't doubt that he probably does. You've never really seen a cardio concern ever with Max. Sure, he's going to be heavier, but you have to assume he put in the work and he knows what he's doing. For Conor, in the past, you have seen cardio issues. Not that he's completely gassed out in fights, but the 5th round against Diaz, he was looking pretty tired. So there has been times where Conor has looked much more tired and up in weight, taking this long off, coming back. That's the narrative of this fight. I don't want to officially pick against Conor McGregor because I would love it if he wins. But if he loses this fight and he loses it horribly, I don't really know what you do. Maybe you do the Chandler fight and then that's it for Conor. And he can get out of his contract, go fight Floyd Mayweather again on Rack Boxing. It's hard to say. For Max, I think you look to win this fight. Hopefully don't take a lot of damage. And then you drop back down and you really make a case. And you say, okay, well, it's me or Charles now for the fight at 55 if you're not going to rematch it with Ilya right away. So really, really excited. All of the reasons to tune in. We've ranted enough. This is our UFC Friday show. Tune in to all of the exciting matchup on Saturday across the weekend. And then on Monday, we'll run Victory Monday. We'll talk CFL. We'll talk World Cup. And most importantly, we'll see how right or wrong we were. If Conor McGregor has won, that is good for the sport. If Max Holloway wins, it is most certainly not bad for the sport. Max Holloway has done nothing but represent the UFC and himself in a positive way. He hasn't been a bad influence for anybody at any point in his career. He's only a role model to people. So, either way, whether the villain, the Return of the Mac wins, it's great for ratings. But if Max Holloway wins, we have a great guy taking it home. Excited to talk all of it on Monday. SamCentre out.
Yo, I'm sat on the throne, but I'm looking at the blueprints. Building a temple where the spirit leaves its footprints. You be a knight's the most high. Asked what I'm needing, didn't ask for peas or for enemies to be bleeding. I asked for the wisdom, the hokmah, the insight to distinguish the dark from the frequency of light. See, I built the first house, see the wood and gold plate between Jashin and Boaz. Standing at the gate, the pillars of the world, severity and mercy. The path is narrow, man, the road is getting thirsty, but the temple lays stone, that's the trick for the blind. The real masonry is the structure of the mind. Seal of the king, two triangles entwined. The lower reflecting the upper design. Master of the spirits, I made the demons work. Building up the temple where the shadows used to lurk. It's the wisdom of Solomon, the heavyweight crown. Building up the spirit while the system falling down. Building up the spirit. Yeah, they say I had the ring, the brass and the iron, commanding the glacier, the wolf and the lion. See, the demons are just facets of the ego and the greed. I harness the shadows to plant the holy seed. You gotta kill the beast, you gotta make it move the blocks. Put the vices in the furnace, turning keys inside the lock. 72 spirits, yeah, I kept them in the vessel. Every conscious man has a demon he must wrestle. If you don't control the lower, then the lower controls you. That's how the temple falls and the spirit gets through. I saw the vanity, the chasing of the wind, but the wisdom is the treasure underneath the skin. I sat with the queen, yeah, Sheba brought the riddle, trying to find a set and not the sides or the middles. She saw your cupbearer, the order of the table. Realize the history is more than just a fable. It's the key of Solomon, the magic in the math, finding your geometry on the righteous path. From the quarry to the corner, I'm the stone they rejected. To the master workman saw the spirit was perfected. Modern day Solomon, I'm building in the ends, turning all the haters and the demons into friends. The temple is complete when the heart is in tune. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the moon. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity unless you know the